What's up guys, CommandoSanta here, and welcome back to another episode of Jubilee Gardens. I am joined as per usual by the lovely Ruble Trillions.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Oh, not too bad, not too bad. Still recovering from that stupid cold, so
Yeah.
I apologize if I'm a little more nasally than usual, but we'll make do. So today was, well, this week, or the last 2 weeks, it was my time to be working on the park. So I ended up taking some time sitting down and thinking like, well, what do we need next? So I originally thought about having, a couple more flat rides and stuff. And I wasn't really sure of where to actually put a flat ride if I was to do one, and what to do with a flat ride as well. I was like, should I put this flat ride? And I don't know. So one of the things I actually kind of thought about while watching Theme Park Worldwide, which is I'm a huge fan of, he was actually at, I think a Disney park or whatever. I think it was a Disney in Tokyo, Japan. But he ended up talking about transportation and stuff in the park for just normal guests and citizens of people in the park and stuff. And that kind of gave me the idea of doing a train station. So one of the things I thought which would be a good idea is to have a train station at the end of Main Street. And then I also started to think about having a canal and stuff too. So I was thinking, let's just have a canal system, which we can have a little bit of ferry boats and then a train station next to that. So when people come in the park, they come down Main Street and they come up to the canal here. They can go wherever I put a ferry terminal, which I think would be a couple family boats or something. And then you can also go across the bridge and end up at a train station, which we're going to have a few different spots around the park to have different train stations. So that was pretty much my idea. And I think you had another idea as well for transportation, Ruble?
Yeah, so we'll put a link to the workshop, but xRBz, I've seen him a lot on Reddit and stuff, and some of you may have seen he did the Force World park as well, so I know a lot of people are familiar with that one, but he has a park called Terra Park, and he came out with an awesome gondola system in that park, and it obviously doesn't function, but he nailed the look of it. I mean, the gondola cars look exact, and the supports are really good on it, and that's something that really is sorely lacking in the game is in particular chairlift system or a gondola, and just other transportation modes in general. So we might do that kind of diagonally across the park. We're not really sure yet, but that's definitely something we're going to consider.
Yeah, at the end of this, I ended up taking some time, and Ruble and I sat down and started doing a little bit of planning of what we're going to do with the park and where we're going to generally start putting things. And it's more of a daunting task than you originally realize. It's where should I put this? Where should we start this section? And yeah, so we're going to have a few different spirals, but we want to have a few set train stops where we can have the train stop, and in different I think we're going to do maybe corners of the park and stuff, and do one big loop around the park, everything. But one of the things I kind of want to touch upon is my kind of ideas of what I want to do with a train station, an actual railroad in the park. So one of the things in Buffalo Valley that I do that I completely regret doing, which is completely different than a normal Disney park, but in Buffalo Valley I have a train and it's really in the background. It doesn't really, it sees some really great sights, but it doesn't see any part of the park really, except when it's maybe near a path, but then it quickly veers off and goes off and doing its own thing. Disney, on the other hand, Disney will actually take your train ride, and they kind of have it in almost raised like we have it here, and they will take you and you will kind of just mosey your way around the park, but you can see all the different parts of the park. It's not like the train just kind of goes somewhere and it's out in the distance and you just kind of see trees. You're seeing the beautifully framed shots of different parts of the park. So that is really what I want to maybe accomplish here in this, and yeah.
Yeah, I think I think just kind of keeping in line with the way that the Disney Imagineers think and design. It's all about maximizing something that you're you're kind of spending money on. So it's not only an artistic decision, but it's a functional one as well. And if you think about, it's not like, hey, we need a transportation ride, but what if it wasn't just a piece of transportation? What if it actually was a ride in and of itself? And I think that's kind of what we're going to shoot for, is that, it's something that people would want to do even if they didn't need to get to another corner of the park. And I think that's something that Disney definitely accomplished with their train system in their park.
Yeah, and that's for sure. One of the other things that they pretty much like to do is when you're on the train itself, you're going to be going by different large rides, and you hate to say the word, but different weenies, and you kind of get the sense like, oh, I really want to go ride that. I really want to get there and go ride that. So once you finally get to the next train station, you get off and you go over and ride that ride, which is pretty much what we're going to try and accomplish here with pretty much all our transportation stuff. So
yeah, it's just an opportunity to highlight the park, and it's accomplishing two purposes: highlighting the park and also getting people from point A to point B. So we'll definitely, as we kind of lay things out, I'm sure we'll develop a better plan of action there. I mean, we know what we want to do theoretically, but putting it into practice is a lot easier said than done. That's something that I know we even talked about. It's like, and I think other creators in the game probably feel the same way, but and it's somewhat silly to talk about because it's just a video game, but it's a real struggle sometimes when you complete something that you really like, then moving on to the next thing. Not only from like a layout standpoint, but also from just if you're really happy with something that was done, then making the transition, and it's like, all right, well, what if the next thing isn't as good? Then it like devalues the work that I just did that I think is awesome. So we'll figure it out as we go, but that's definitely a real struggle that we both are kind of trying to figure out in the park.
Yeah, I know. I told you that pretty much after I finished this, I kind of wanted to do like maybe another like shop building or something. And I'm glad I didn't, just because of the length of all the footage I have. But like, to me, I am very, very proud of this building, which I haven't talked about yet, but we'll get there.
Yeah, you should be. It's awesome.
It took me a very long time, but I had so much fun building it. And to me, like, it feels it's going to be really, really hard to top it. I was sitting kind of trying to like think of some ideas for different shops or maybe a ride to put somewhere. And I'm like, it looks like crap next to this building. It's not going to look as good as this building. It's like, it was very, really frustrating, but I'm sure after 2 weeks, after you're done with it, I'll have something else to do with it.
Yeah, that's the nice thing about it, though, is just from kind of a workflow perspective. For me, it's like I'll feel that way. Like, for example, when I finished my Main Street in my solo project, it's like I immediately was like, well, shit, what do I do? I love how all that turned out, but now I don't even know where to begin. And you just kind of start working at it, and sometimes you hate what you're working on and you gotta scrap it and do something different, but then eventually it's kind of just, you have to almost force yourself to work through it, I think. But it's nice, like you said. I think if you would have tried to do something more, you probably would have been forcing it. But when you get to take a step back, which is one of the great things about a collaboration, is you get to take a step back from the project and kind of get a clearer perspective, and then also see what someone else does, and that could that can totally inspire you to do your next piece of the project. And when we get into the time lapse here, where you kind of start laying things out, just seeing the way you laid things out, like, I'm already getting some ideas of things that I want to do. So hopefully, whatever I finish in the next 2 weeks, that will kind of spur you on and give you some ideas for your next episode. Sure.
Did you want to talk about what you're kind of planning for the next 2 weeks?
Yeah. So I think I'm going to spend a decent amount of time kind of tidying up the Main Street. There's still some stuff that needs to be done there. Definitely working on the backstage area. We want to have a fairly realistic backstage, and also try to incorporate some shops into the Main Street buildings that actually function. So that will probably take the bulk of it, but also, I think, we kind of discussed trying to incorporate maybe a flat ride behind this train station, which that's something I'll also, if I have time, probably take a look at. So
Okay.
we'll see. But it won't be anything, groundbreaking in terms of, hey, we're drastically expanding the park. So hopefully you guys are cool with kind of a slower pace. It's not, we don't want this to be, like a 50 episode project, but at the same time, we also don't want to rush it. So yeah, we'll see what things happen over the next couple weeks when I have the project.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're going to do some amazing stuff. And it's like you said, every time you do something in the park, you inspire me, and I think it's pretty much the same thing back and forth. But yeah, it's pretty exciting. So I guess I should start talking about this building now that we're almost halfway through the episode. So I ended up wanting to do something almost like Disney Main Street, the train station for that. And I originally was trying a few different things, and I wasn't really too happy with it. And a funny story, I actually went to lunch recently at our local grocery store, Wegmans. And I'm sitting there, and I'm looking at Wegmans, and it's like, huh, that's a pretty building. I should make that. And so here we are. That's really the story for that. Wegmans is a really, really nice grocery store that is pretty much New York State kind of bound almost. But they're very, very aesthetically pleasing buildings, at least some of them. Some of them just kind of look like warehouses, but they always take their time and like make it look really, really nice. So This is actually based off a Wegmans that I go to that's near me. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, but I also want to
talk about dual incorporation. It's like you can get your shopping done and go on around.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. You can go here. You can buy your organic bananas, and then you can move on and take a train ride. It's great. But yeah, I kind of wanted to take that, maybe put my own little spin on it, and then kind of turn it almost into a train station, which was a little bit more difficult than I thought, but I think the building itself turned into a train station when I finished what I'm currently working on right now, and it's going to be kind of the station. I don't know what to call it. I don't know what to call this. What do they call this?
The platform?
Yeah, the platform cover.
Yeah.
There we go. Yes. It was after I got this done, and I kind of stood back and went down Main Street and took one big long look at it. I was super, super happy with it. It turned out really great, I think.
Yeah, it looks awesome. I know we kind of went back and forth on Discord about, the platform in front or behind the station, because the first shot you showed me was the station itself, and it looked awesome. And then you're talking about doing a cover over the platform, and I was like, don't hide your station. And after all said and done, I love it. It's awesome. I think it was a smart design decision to elevate the station the way you did, because you still, from the paths, you still get a really great view of the building itself.
Yep.
But at the same time, it functions really well with the platform being there. So.
Yeah, and it turns almost into a focal point to Main Street itself, and even from different parts of the park, because there's going to be a lot of stuff on the other side of it. And this building itself stands up a little tall just because I raised it. So it's kind of maybe bringing people over here to like, hey, take a train ride, I'm pretty happy with it.
Yeah, no, it looks awesome. It was a great job. And I think it's an example of the fact that, design inspiration for your parks can come from anywhere. I mean, you did this based on a grocery store.
Yeah.
Which, so like as you yourself, if you're watching this and you're, a Planet Coaster builder, it's like, don't have a narrow focus when you're out in the world. Like there can be, inspiration anywhere. I mean, there's been times where like I have to travel a lot for my job, and there's been times where I've been places and like I'll take pictures of like a dining area or a patio or things like that I think would look good in a park. And I know you had said too that doing this building was a little more difficult than you thought, and I can totally relate to that, because it's really hard to do something where you're basing it on a real life building, but the purpose that it's going to serve in your park is not the function that it serves in reality.
Yeah.
So for example, I've done that with several buildings in some of my stuff where it's been like a coaster station or something along those lines. And obviously that's not the function that those buildings serve in real life. And so to all of a sudden you're putting a train in front of it, or you're running a coaster through the middle of it, and it's really difficult sometimes from an architectural standpoint of making it look like it's a sound design, not only from an aesthetic standpoint, but also from a functionality standpoint, where hey, this structure would actually function in real life, while at the same time there's a coaster going through the middle of it. So I think you did a great job. I obviously don't know what the grocery store looks like, but
yeah.
This looks like a train station. It doesn't look like a grocery store. So good job.
Yeah. So if you're gonna take anything from this episode, really go have lunch somewhere, and like really.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, going off of that, I mean, this building, all the buildings we really make here are half functional, maybe functional. This building itself is not functional. It's just a building. It's just going to be there. It looks nice, but originally was thinking about having an interior here, but at the same time, I'm kind of glad I didn't, because it's one of those things we talked about earlier. You make an interior, you take some nice pictures, you really enjoy it for a little bit, and then you never look at it again. But I can totally understand doing what you're going to do on Main Street and having like the buildings inside, the shops inside, because that makes sense. Having people kind of like mosey inside and outside, that's great. That's going to look absolutely great.
Yeah, and something in terms of those interiors, N7 from Bro Coaster actually made a comment to me about how Disney Main Street is, they actually, the buildings, the shops on Disney Main Street actually function as a corridor themselves. Where they act as a path themselves. So if there is like a parade or something going on Main Street, you can use the buildings as a thoroughfare, as a way to get from one side of the Main Street to the other. Yep. And so I think what I'm going to do with some of the interiors, I'm going to do my best to not treat each building as its own separate structure, but to just truly treat them as a facade, so that the interior could be, maybe it's 2 buildings wide or 3 buildings wide, but on the outside it looks like it's all separate buildings. So that should save hopefully some stuff on piece count, and also just on the amount of detail that has to go into it if you're doing truly separate buildings for each one. So I won't do interiors on all of them, but I definitely will utilize that technique to maximize as much as possible.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I think we covered that in the last episode, kind of, where we talked about having, some of the facades, they look very, very skinny, where we can't really have, where it doesn't really make sense to have one single shop in there. It's like, how do you have one shop? Well, that's what you said. There's actually, like, some of the buildings are one shop themselves, and it's exactly that. It's a facade, so.
Right.
But, yeah, so one of the other things that I am currently working on is the Canal system. So I talked about earlier that I kind of wanted to have a canal system that goes through the park, that we have like these little, maybe like ferry systems and stuff. And I go back to the topic of the day here, which is going to be transportation. And my kind of idea is to have like single or double family boats that you can just kind of get on, and there'll be like one guy controlling this little boat, and you can go down the canals, and everything will be very, very scenic from down there as well. And I think we're going to have like a main canal, or maybe like an actual like main kind of waterway that maybe turns into like different streams, different actual like natural rivers and stuff, and to take you from different parts of the park. Because that's one thing we're going to actually have here and kind of think about is when you have like a lot of guests, and like considering Disney as well, they get a lot of guests, and you have to get all those people from point A to point B to not really like muck up all the pathways. So, and that's pretty much what I kind of want to do here as well. So, we have both paths on each side of the canal, so that actually makes the canal itself almost like a main street, even though it's actually split into 2 different streets, and actually kind of keeps the populace away from each other. I'm actually really happy with the way I ended up doing that.
Yeah, no, I think that's going to be great. And in terms of like layout and stuff like that, that's something that I will heavily leave to you to work on and try to figure out, because that's definitely not my strong suit, as well as some of the, like landscaping and things like that. I feel like I've gotten a little bit better in that area, but definitely need improvement. And speaking of that, I think that's still coming up in the video where you start really doing a lot of the landscaping around the building, but it looks fantastic. So that's one thing that I'm excited about in this series as well, is just learning more of those techniques.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, we have gardens in our name, so we kind of have. I kind of wanted to bring everything a little bit more natural, less like concrete expanse where it's just buildings and paths. I wanted to have maybe more of a little like, I guess more like a park areas, and almost like maybe take a few things from like Central Park, New York, and stuff, like places where people can go hang out, relax, and like listen to like birds and stuff, that kind of stuff, you know?
Yeah. No,
and that's kind of where I came with the back of this building here. The front of the building is where the path comes down. That's actually the exit. The entrance is actually, you kind of enter on this side, and the front of the building, the back of the building is actually more. It kind of reminds me almost of like a college building almost. The way I
could
have
see that,
everything,
like a student union or something.
Yeah, the way I have everything kind of set up, you know, where it's got the main path that goes around, and then you got a few like separate paths that go through, and then you come up to the back of the building here to get into the entrance. So that'll make more sense when we actually get to that part of the time lapse. So yeah, what I'm doing right now is this side of the building over here. So thinking more about it, this building is it's more functional in a story kind of sense. So I feel this building would be almost, on the interior, would look almost like a beautiful central station kind of terminal. But on the side over here, I kind of made a little cafe area, because I feel like there would be some spots to like sit, hang out, have some food, have some drink before you move on to the other parts of the park if you're waiting for a train, something like that. And be able to like stand up here, kind of look at all like the people walking around, do some good old fashioned people watching and that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's also something that I actually on Discord was talking with N7 from Bro Coaster on about, is for myself, sometimes I get in the trap of thinking of things as separate. So, a restaurant is a restaurant, a ride is a ride, things like that. When in reality, most parks are going to incorporate those things together as much as possible. It's the same principle as like mixed use buildings in real life, where you have maybe ground floor retail, you might have some residences, some office space, and some hotel in all in one structure, and it's about maximizing the square footage and maximizing the opportunity for to make money using the space that you have. And so I think that's a great idea to put a cafe in the train station. Just naturally, the space is already there, so why not use it as an opportunity to make money for the park? Yeah, exactly. And this building itself needs to be, like I said, kind of story functional in a sense, because I expect maybe inside this building there would be, the place where you sit and wait for the terminal, but then there would be like a small little like, I don't know, little food counters where you can like just walk up, grab some food, and then maybe a few little actual like fast food spots, and then maybe this could be an outside spot where you actually do sit down and maybe a waiter comes to you and like orders drinks and stuff. I don't know, it's it's some of the things that a lot of these buildings have. And also in this building I would expect to have like a lot of restroom facilities and stuff like that, souvenir shops, that kind of stuff. I expect this building to be like a really big focal point, trying to bring everyone to here, spend some money, and then go move on to different parts of the park. That's really what I wanted to accomplish with this.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's it definitely serves that purpose. And at the same time, we had initially discussed when we first started the project maybe doing a weenie in the more traditional sense of like having a tower or something like that, a watchtower, an observation tower. And I'm really glad that we went this route instead, and that you did the train station, because it's not so daunting. It still has charm, it still fits into the overall theme of the park, the aesthetic of the park, and at the same time it still draws people's attention. It still would act as sort of a wayfinder in that same regard, but it's not so over the top. So I'm glad that that this is how this thing's panned out. I think it's a great addition to the park so far.
Yeah, and it has actual functionality, which is very, very important to have actual functionality. But yeah, another thing that actually right now is when I'm actually starting the back part of the ride here. And really what I wanted to do with this was do more of like a park kind of feel, where it's you kind of walk around. There's different spots where you can sit down, hang out, have a drink, and sit down, view the sights, hear the birds. And yeah, I think it turned out really, really good.
I really like how you, in that last couple seconds of footage, how you adjusted the terrain up kind of around the station. That's something that, again, I don't do nearly enough of, and it totally makes it feel more natural. Even though, obviously, in reality, if you were to construct this building, you would probably start with a completely flat graded surface, but then adding that addition of, building up the terrain around it makes it look like it's something that has been there for years, and wasn't just built from scratch in the park. And yeah, so I think those are the little touches that like I'm already learning from this collaboration.
Yeah, and almost to like kind of not really like, I guess one of the reasons why I kind of raised that up was almost to toot the horn of Bro Basics, the Bro Ghoster guys.
Yeah.
Almost with the fact of nature, I guess, with that term, nature.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that was great. I've heard so many people talk about that episode already. Where like even people who are super experienced in the game have learned from that. So definitely, if you haven't checked that out, you definitely should. It's a great tutorial on landscaping, and if you want to make landscaping look realistic in your park, you're probably not going to find a better tutorial.
Yeah, and they're very right with what they talk about. I mean, there's definitely different types of landscaping scenes. I mean, like Disney itself, it's all everything is there for a reason. And then like compared to like my Buffalo Valley series, which everything's just super overgrown, it's just like everything's just been there, And then you have the in-between and stuff. And what I kind of want to accomplish with this was not more of the in-between. I kind of made everything a little bit more overgrown towards the building itself. It would be kept a little bit, but there isn't going to be a guy who's mowing this lawn every single day.
Right.
So, but then someone would keep the hedges going, and then just kind of sunk bushes into where maybe not many people would be seeing. Maybe it'd be overgrown a little bit. And then the little touches of having a little shrub kind of under where a tree trunk would be, because maybe the intern didn't go out and do the weed whacking today for some reason. I don't just little stuff like that. And then, this building itself, I would expect to be, maybe it's been here a very long time, especially the base of it, which is kind of why I kind of did the little overgrown vines there at where the staircase goes up. Mm-hmm. Just little stuff, little stuff that catches the eye here and there, but also makes the building look almost natural, like it's supposed to be there. It's not just flat grass with like a huge whopping building that just someone put there.
Yeah, it all turned out really nice. I love this building. So
yeah, so do I am so proud of this building. It's not even funny. Like I sit and look at Buffalo Valley, it's like, how am I going to do something like that here? But
awesome.
yeah, one of the last things here that I kind of worked on before we get to the end here is I ended up just doing a little like fountain, and I kind of maybe thought about the idea of having it as a little memorial, and so I made that front there look like a plaque almost, and maybe it'll have some like writing. It's just maybe a little bit about the creator of the park. Maybe it probably was going to talk about us and like talk about how cool we are and stuff, but that's probably what the plaque says.
Yeah, these
and
cool
then,
dudes that build a theme park game.
Yeah, they're super cool. But yeah, that's pretty much what I did with that. It's just those little touches here and there that just add a little bit more flavor to the park, Everything should be there for a reason. That's what I always say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, yeah, just a few more details left. The base of the building is pretty much done. Just kind of moving out the path and stuff. I forget what else did I do in here. Oh yeah, just more meticulous decorating. Those lamps you made are fantastic, by the way.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I think they'll be a nice feature to kind of continue around the park and all the paths and stuff. So
yeah, and that's one thing we also talked about, is trying to keep everything kind of similar through the park. Everything, you know, like use the same lamps, and I used your like chairs and stuff to kind of keep it all together, you know?
Yeah, because you can have separate areas and yet still feel like you're in the same park. So
yeah, exactly. But well, we're hitting the end here pretty much, so I guess it's time to sign off.
Yeah. Awesome.
So, all right. Thank you guys for watching, as usual. Make sure to subscribe to both of us. We have both channels in the description. I'll link both of them. And yeah, hit a like if you like that. Let us know your comments in the comments below. Leave us some feedback. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks, guys, for watching.
See you guys.